Whether you think you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, it's been kind of hard to avoid all of the hype and promotion around this year's new Wuthering Heights adaptation. Whatever your opinion of the movie ends up being, and I would love to hear that, I have a book here for you to consider picking up next. In the next 7 books, we have toxic relationships, forbidden romances, and all the yearning you could possibly want. The first book you might want to consider is the obvious one. This is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is the source material for the new film. It came out in the 1840s, so we're fairly far out from spoiler territory, and I think a lot of people have a rough idea what Wuthering Heights is about. But if you've somehow managed to avoid all of the heaving bosomed trailers, then this is the story of a home called Wuthering Heights. In it we meet the Earnshaw family, notably the 2 children Cathy and Hindley. One day Catherine's father brings back an orphan that he wants to raise alongside his own children. Unfortunately, Mr. Earnshaw dies fairly young, and Cathy and Heathcliff are then raised in a combination of Hindley's tyrannical nature and a sort of lazy neglect. They grow up quite wild, running about the moors together, and are very much 2 halves of the same whole. As they become older, however, the differences in their stations become more and more apparent. When a new wealthy family moves into the area, the Lintons, Cathy begins to dream of marrying Edgar and increasing her own station and helping Heathcliff along the way. Naturally, Heathcliff doesn't quite see the genius of her plan, and the story really unfolds from there. Cathy and Heathcliff's relationship, along with the other characters that they pull into their orbit, is the first half of the book, and this is usually the half that gets adapted for film and TV. There's also a second half to the story, however, where we see the ramifications of Heathcliff's actions. Obsession and jealousy and revenge not only destroy 2 families, but also spirals down to damage the next generation. This was my very favourite classic novel when I was a teenager, but something to be very aware of, and I'm not sure how the new movie will tackle this, is that Wuthering Heights really isn't a romance, as in a category romance. Heathcliff and Cathy are pretty much the worst people you'll ever meet, and if you go into this book thinking you're going to like the protagonists, you might struggle. As people, they're terrible, but as characters, they're fascinating, and you really can't help but be sucked into the whirlwind of drama around them and the way that plays out across everyone else they meet. Moving away from Wuthering Heights itself, but if you want to stay fairly close to that source material, then you could do far worse than picking up The Favourites by Layne Fargo. This was the Book Talk darling of the year last year, and it really deserves all the accolades. It is quite literally a contemporary Wuthering Heights retelling, but set on ice. If you think that the 1850s language in the original maybe isn't for you, this really updates it but keeps some of those core characters and recognisable plot beats. We're following 2 Olympic level ice dancing champions who have come up through the sport together, but as they aspire to higher and higher competitions, they find that they have to choose between their loyalties to each other and their ambitions for their careers. This one does take away quite a lot of the truly toxic elements of Wuthering Heights. It makes Heath in particular a much more likeable character, but we do very much keep with the idea of social class being important. Kat's ambition here, translated for a modern audience as her desire to succeed in her sport rather than the original idea of marrying up in society, really is at the forefront of the story. We do add in some other toxic elements, as you would expect from something that focuses on very, very high level competition sport. This is a great option if you prefer to have characters that you really do genuinely like and want to root for, leaving the literal Wuthering Heights retellings behind, but sticking with that idea of sports on ice. We have the other cultural darling of the moment, Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reid. This, I'm not going to tell you is like Wuthering Heights in any particular way. It is perfect if your favourite things about Wuthering Heights were the forbidden romance angle, the burning across the years but being unable to be together, having to choose career and public facing image over maybe what you truly desire. All of that is here, We have Shane Hollander, who is a Canadian hockey player, and Ilya Rozanov, a Russian who plays for an American team. Ever since they were rookies, they have been really promoted as rivals, as at each other's throats. All along, they've been secretly conducting a relationship together that, if it gets out, could completely blow up their careers and their lives in this really toxically masculine sport. Before we go on to the fantasy novels, I have one historical for you. This is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. In this, we meet an aging Hollywood starlet as she tells a reporter her life story, and we journey back into the 1950s and the golden age of Hollywood. Evelyn shares all the struggles she's faced along the way, starting out as a relatively poor Cuban American to the various challenges that a woman in the 1950s through 80s would face in those elite Hollywood circles. She frames her story through the 7 husbands that she married along the way, while also telling us about the one relationship, her truest love, that no one else could know about. Again, this one has that secret relationship, it has a forbidden romance, and it is absolutely chock full of yearning. This is an absolutely beautiful book, and it's so convincingly written that while I was reading it, I genuinely had the thought that I should go off and find some of Evelyn Hugo's movies to watch after. If you're looking for something that blurs the line between fantasy and history, then I cannot recommend anything higher than The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. No one does tragedy quite like Greek mythology, and Madeline Miller is one of, I think, the best Greek mythology writers out today. This, no surprise, is the story of Achilles and his cousin, friend, brother-in-arms, lover, depending on what interpretation you want to take. We see the two of them meet as children, we see them grow up together, and then we see them go off to fight in the war at Troy. This has the sense of inevitability throughout it. If you're in any way familiar with the myth, you probably know where it ends up. And even if you're not, Miller is very aware of the genre she's writing in. That sense of something horrible coming down the line is always present, even in the happiest moments of the story. And that tragedy just adds a whole extra level to the tragedy of the romance, the yearning, and the heartbreak that plays out. Moving firmly into fantasy, we have Under the Pendulum Sun by Jeanette. This is a Gothic inspired, so loosely historical setting in a fairy world. Catherine's brother has went missing while he was working as a missionary, bringing gospels to the dark continent, or the fairy world. Catherine finds herself in a sinister house, reunited with her brother, but under the thumb of the Queen of the Fae. This one is giving you all those gothic vibes that you get in Wuthering Heights, and quite literally the gothic building to go with it. But without too many spoilers, it is also going to really give you that forbidden romance angle if that's what you're looking for. Then finally, we've got 2 books in a duology. This is The Darkness Within Us, and you could also read the prequel, The Shadows Between Us. Both are by Tricia Levenseller. In the first book, we follow Alessandra. She's relatively sexually liberal in a fantasy world that doesn't really reward women for that, and decides that she is going to go to the capital city, seduce the mysterious and terrifying prince, and then kill him and steal his throne for herself. The 2 books in the duology are completely standalone, as they both follow a different sister. In The Darkness Within Us, we follow Chrysanthia. She has done everything she was supposed to do. She has been the well-behaved sister. She has married a well-off man with good social status, but who is definitely on the older end of the spectrum. And when she hears what her sister's been up to, she decides that she's had enough. When her elderly husband mysteriously dies, she thinks she's finally made it. She has the freedom of a widow and the money to spend on what she wants. However, when her husband's estranged grandson turns up and contests the will, Cassandra has to decide just how ruthless she's willing to be. Both these books heavily feature enemies to lovers stories, but more than that, the connection that I see with Wuthering Heights here is the ambition in both the sisters. Alessandra and Chrysanthia could both come from the same mould as Kathy. They are ambitious women who desperately want to take the power they can and exert what little agency they have available to them in order to better their own position in society. even if that means filing away all the rough edges that make them themselves and potentially throwing away other friendships, opportunities, or loves in order to do that. So those are the books that I think you might be interested in if you've enjoyed Wuthering Heights. Let me know in the comments if you did enjoy the movie. Let me know your favourite toxic, secret, or otherwise tragic romances. And leave me a skating emoji for the favourites. And as always, any likes or subscriptions to the channel are very much appreciated. I hope I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.